Good afternoon, everyone. This is Teacher Kim. I'm so glad to be here, to be invited, and to be sharing with you things that I know about inclusive education, how you can make it work inside your classroom, what practical classroom strategies that you can use to make inclusion work in your classroom. But before that, I would like to begin by telling you a story about two learners. Two learners standing outside the school. First one walks up the steps, opens the door, and walks right in. For that learner, the path is clear, no obstruction, no hindrance, no barriers. Everything is predictable as it is, and it's very welcoming for him. Here comes the second learner. He arrives at the exact same door, but there is that barrier that made him not climb the steps. So it could be that physical step that's hindering him from entering the classroom, or it could be a textbook that he cannot read, having a hard time reading the text, or it could be simply the environment, how the environment is designed that can feel completely overwhelming. Take note, the school is the same, the teachers are the same, the classrooms is the same, but the experience is entirely different. For too long, the burden was placed on the second child, the second learner, to figure out how to climb the steps, how to get into the classroom, how to deal with the obstruction, how to read, how can he read the book given to him, the text on the book that he has to read. He's not able to read. How can he do it? How can he complete the task? Or how can he feel safe, regulated, and in the learning environment that is so full of um things that are not needed, things that are not helping him. What can we do? True inclusion can flip that story. So just a while ago, I said that, inclusion is really hard to implement. The realities in the field, like teachers are not getting the support, students are not really learning inside the classroom. But those are created realities. We created those realities because we failed to provide them support. We failed to um, give them access to quality, to individualized, highly specialized education, equitable education. Kumbaga, it's our own doing. It's a created reality. And we can flip that reality into something that is ideal, something that is legal, something that we should have done a long time ago. And the law can help us. The things that we do inside the classroom can help us. So we are here today because an inclusive classroom does not just open the door for some. It intentionally dismantles the barriers so that every type of learner can walk through it together. So now let's begin by understanding what inclusion is. So a lot of information has been making rounds on social media platform. Actually, there were several contradicting concepts, contradicting principles on inclusion. But there are three things that I'd like to emphasize. First, access to basic education. And what is basic education? RA 10533 defines basic education is simply the DepEd mandated trajectory, which is K to 12. So we are to provide access to K to 12 education. Ibig sabihin, lahat ng mga batang nag-enroll sa school should be assigned a grade level. That is their basic human right. Nasa Constitution yan. Education is their basic human right. The second that we need to think of, meaningful full participation, meaning learners with disabilities should be learning together with their typical peers. So there's a shared learning space, shared learning environment. They should be doing things together. They should be in one classroom. At ano yung inclusive classroom? The inclusive classroom is the general education classroom. I know this is gonna cause a lot of reactions from you or raise some eyebrows. But that's how it is. Yan ang sinabi ng batas. Third is support. Now you provide access to K to 12, meaningful, full participation. You allow that to happen. But you know what? Inclusion would still not happen if you're not going to provide support. Napakahalaga ng support na ibibigay natin sa mga bata. And there are different types of support that we can give. One is the academic services support. Who is the main provider of the academic service support? The teachers, Gen Ed teacher and special needs education teacher. The second is related services support. These are the therapeutic interventions, clinical treatment interventions being given to the students, to the learners. But unfortunately, here in the country, it's not just an isolated case, no, dito sa Pilipinas, I think it's a global thing. The disproportionality of services, meaning we have shortage of service providers. How many developmental pediatricians do we have in the country? How many speech and language pathologists do we have in the country? Occupational therapists. Konti lang compare doon sa number of children or learners needing the services. So kahit we have the money in the world, no, to pay for the services, kulang tayo sa service providers. So what do we do? Teachers really have to step up inside the classroom. Make the classroom a space where students can get all the necessary support. So we have to think of what strategies can we do inside the classroom to support our children. It's not right to say you have to provide us a developmental assessment before we accept you in our school, or before you can be enrolled, or before you can come into my classroom. It's not right to say you need to provide us first with assessment or treatment plan from speech and language pathologists, from occupational therapists, before you can be provided with educational services, before we will accept you in our school. Because, sabi ng batas, education is a basic human right, constitutional right yan ng bata. Once the child is of school age, the child should be in school. And it's also not right to say that, oh, you know what? Because of your disability, you can only come to school on Monday and Tuesday, or Tuesday and Thursday, twice a week, thrice a week for an hour. We are promoting truancy. What is truancy? Excessive absences without valid excuse. So ano bang basis ng absences na yun? Their disability. So you see, there are a lot of things. Ang tawag doon actually are predetermination. Predetermination, you are already making a decision about the education of the child without the due process of individualized education plan and the due process of referral, without even consulting the parent. So, predetermination ang tawag doon. So, wala kang ginawang consultation, wala kang tinawag na meeting, but then you're already doing a decision regarding the education of the student. So you see, a lot of things. Actually, there were stories of lived experiences ng mga families, no, who have children, family members na merong disabilities. We receive a lot of feedback and information coming from the parents and how they were treated by public schools, by private schools. So it's really disheartening, no? Teachers, we should be at the front line in advocating for all learners. So there's advocacy, but then there's prudent advocacy. Prudence dictates that when we advocate for inclusive education, we should align it to the legal framework. Our professional opinion, personal opinion, does not really matter. It's not really a matter of academic debate. It's a matter of, is it aligned to the legal framework? Is it legal? Is it uh, what the law says? So the law says access to basic education, meaningful full participation, and support. All these three should exist. Now, our goal for this session is you can have like an understanding the three core principles of universal design for learning and how to apply them to create accessible, engaging instruction for all learners in inclusive classrooms. The inclusive classrooms include both the neurotypical learners and the neurodivergent learners. Of course, should be able to implement effective classroom routines and procedures using research-based strategies to establish structure that supports diverse learners. But this is just an hour and a half session. So we'll just do an introduction on what UDL is, Universal Design for Learning, and what procedures and routines you can do inside your classroom and other practical strategies that we can do inside the classroom. So, universal design for learning. I know this is not the first time you heard about it. Universal design meaning it works for everyone else. Right? Let's say I'm holding here a spoon, meaning the spoon should be UD, like universally designed. Anyone with missing digits can use the spoon. Now, the book that I've read, made an analogy on a banquet table. So let's say you have a party at your home and you are inviting guests to come over. So when you plan for the menu, you should plan for the menu that everyone can partake. So you cannot have shrimp if someone is allergic to shrimps. You cannot have dairy on the table if someone is allergic to dairy. You need to have everything on the table that everyone can partake, can eat. So yun yung analogy niya sa universal design for learning. Now, universal design for learning is based on the three pillars. So ano yung three pillars ng universal design for learning. First pillar, multiple means of engagement, and that is the why of learning. The second pillar is the multiple means of representation, that is the what of learning. And the third, the multiple means of expression, action and expression, the how of learning. So this is a proactive approach, no? Proactive meaning hindi siya reactive. This is a planned. This is planned, carefully planned approach to prevent possible to prevent possible barrier to learning from happening. So, kailangan mo siyang iplano that the learning environment that you design is conducive for everyone. So, the lighting should not be overwhelming to a child with autism, to a learner with autism. The chair should not be, should not, isa lang yung design ng chair. So you can have as many designs of the chairs that would work for everyone. The way you sit the students, you have to carefully plan it. The way you, the strategy that you're going to use when you present a lesson, that everyone will be engaged, in the lesson, kailangan lahat. So lecture is not an engaging way to keep the interest of the student, no? So you can think of many ways, varied ways, multiple means of engagement. Simply put, it means providing different ways to motivate the learners and keep them interested in learning. So for instance, if your way of motivating your students to complete the task is for them to be able to play chess or any board games that you have in your classroom. But not everyone is interested in playing chess. How about the others who's interested in playing with Lego? How about a student playing with toy trucks? So you can think of many ways to reinforce student engagement. So hindi lang isa. So you have to think you can implement as many as needed. You can tap into the learner's interest by offering choices in how they engage with the content and provide options for self-regulation. You know what? I of all the classrooms that we have visited all over the country, not all classrooms have a space to self-regulate, like a camp corner that a student can go to, or a corner, just a simple corner that a student can retreat to, no, that can go to when he becomes dysregulated. Like if the sound is too loud, where can he go? He can go to a corner, put on a headset to minimize the noise. Or what if the number of students can be overwhelming? The child can retreat to a corner away from the group and just be by himself because he needs it. It's a sensory thing. So in our classroom, we can think of a safe space. We call it a safe space that a child can retreat to. And then sustaining that effort, hindi lang yung once a week, tapos next week wala na, or this week lang, next month wala na. So you have to sustain that effort to continually recruit the interest of the students. And you can use varied activities, incorporate student interest, and create relevance to real world applications. So how I did it one time in my classroom, lahat ng mga bata may token cards. Yeah, it's just a simple token cards. And then every day they earn tokens for completing the task, for listening to the teacher, for sitting down, and for doing the assigned task, or for doing like parang yung kindness, no, to other students, to classmates. And what do they do with the token? The token they can use to redeem kung ano yung highly preferred object, highly preferred toy, highly preferred activity, um, highly preferred, if you want, merong food kang ibibigay. And they have to earn. They have to earn it. So, kumbaga, just like us, we go to work and then we get paid for every 15 days. So that's our motivation. We do overtime because we get overtime pay. It's the same thing with the students. So so how do you find out kung ano yung interest ng bata? You can do reinforcement survey. You can find out from food, from toys, to recreational activities, to persons, uh, yung materials, kung paano yung highly preferred na writing materials, lahat from the least preferred to the highly preferred. That way, you'll be able to know the their profile. Next is multiple means of representation. Meaning, how are you going to present your lesson? Lagi tayong lecture, right? Okay, class, get your book, open it on page 28. And then some students you see can't even find the book, can't even open to, the book to the page that you asked them to go, to open their book. So, uh, it's because they have a hard time processing information. They're not learning, they're not catching up, they're not doing what you're asking them to do, not because uh, they want to spite you, or sim- not because they're non-compliant, but it's because they're having a hard time. So, what are other ways that you can think of when you present your lesson that would engage your students to learn? So, marami tayong iisipin na paraan, no? Different ways to reach our learners. You can use visual, because sometimes the verbal information that becomes the auditory information is not enough for some learners to process the information. So we add another sensory input, which is the visual materials, no? So meron kang ipapakita mga instructional materials. But then sometimes the verbal information becomes the auditory information, and the visual information. Sometimes they're not enough for some learners for them to process the information. And then we add another sensory in ano yun, tactile, especially in reading, especially in math. So talagang gumagamit tayo ng mga tactile materials, something that they can touch, something that they can manipulate. And then again, kulang pa rin yung visual, verbal, auditory, tactile, and then we do kinesthetic. You know what? In literacy instruction, like structured, explicit, multisensory, literacy instruction. So, kompleto yan. Kinesthetic, let's say, you're teaching them blending. So, yung sinusulat mo sa board, it's not enough for them to learn how to blend. So, una, nagbigay ka pa ng like verbal auditory. It's not enough. Nagpakita ka pa ng visual on the board. And then tactile, nagbigay ka ng chips. Let's say they're going to blend at. Hindi nila ma-blend. So, kailangan meron sila ding makita at ma-manipulate. So, meron kang tatlong chips na ibibigay and then they are going to, each chip represents a sound, at, and then i-scoop nila, meaning they are going to blend. So, nakikita nila na ma-manipulate. But then still, that is not the same. Now, you can use your body, movement, kinesthetic. Say, always left to right progression. At, 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 at. So there's movement. So a lot of sensory input, and daming sensory input, it helps them process the information. And another is like, if you do this, you're doing phonemic awareness drill, for example, at, take away, what's left. So there's body movement. Even when you teach sounds, like we say, A says B says B. So merong mga movement. It's because it helps them process ang daming input. So you can think of many ways. Hindi lang yung lecture and then write on the board and then they copy, or usual na get your book, open it, answer questions 1, 2, 3. So it's really not interesting. Do you remember your elementary days or your high school days? Let's make it fun to learn for these children. So we can provide alternatives for text. For example, if a student has dyslexia and still receiving reading intervention and still not reading, no? Kasi kasalukuyang tumatanggap pa lang ng intervention, how can the student read, the text on the book or get the information from the text on the book? So what can you do? Maybe you can provide a recorded information, audio that the child can listen to. Or maybe if the student is having a hard time processing yung heavy text, you can give an outline. So different ways, multiple ways, multiple formats ang pwede nating gamitin. Now, the third one is multiple means of actions and expression. So, how do you know that a student is learning? How can a student demonstrate a learning? Paano mo lalaman na natuto yung bata? So, you have to allow, okay, take for instance, you expect them to recite the poem, the tree. I think that I shall never see a poem as lovely as a tree. So how about a child who has zero or very minimal verbal output? Maano niya ma-recite yan orally? So you can think of ways na ma-demonstrate ng bata na yun ang poem. It's all about the tree. So students can show understanding through written work. Students or aura, not aura presentations, visual presentations, maybe a drawing or an illustration, visual projects, digital creations, or hands-on demonstration. And flexibility, we have to honor and respect the diversity of our learners, no? We have to honor that through flexibility. Ay, kilalanin natin yung strength and weaknesses ng mga bata. And if we do that, that reduce barriers to success. I know, easier said than done, but You know, it's hard. It's hard also that the usual way, the usual things that we do inside the classroom, mahirap din. Nahihirapan din tayo. And if we do this inside our classroom, we also say na mahirap. So it's time to choose what kind of hard, no, do we want inside our classroom? The hard that does not help or the hard that helps? So we need to offer choice boards for assignments, use assistive technology tools, and provide graphic organizers and planning templates. So everything is templated. Allow verbal responses instead of written ones, and incorporate movement-based activities for kinesthetic learners. Kaya nga, even during the workshop that we do, if we are doing sana face-to-face, a lot of it will not, you will not be hearing a lot of me in it, like doing this lecture, but you will be having a lot of movement. Uh, that's that's how I do it. Like you do it, marami kayong action na gagawin, no? But it's different when we do online. Now, how do you implement UDL in your classroom? Of course, you have to assess learners' variability. Ay, pagkakaiba ng mga bata. Begin by understanding the following: their diverse needs, their strength, their weaknesses, preferences. Ang dami mong take into consideration. So how to do this? You need to do survey, reinforcement survey is an example. You need to do screening, observations, and of course, formal, informal assessments. That's the way to do it. Kilalanin mo talaga and you have to record your observations. Remember, you need to document everything. Kasi nga, if it's not documented, it does not happen. Right? You don't know, you forget what you do not see anymore. So you really have to document everything inside your classroom. Now, designing flexible lessons, create lesson plans with built-in flexibility from the start. Plan multiple pathways to learning objectives. How to achieve the objective? There's not just one way to achieve the objective. Marami. So, like, it's different for every learner. Incorporating varied materials, activities, and assessment methods that accommodate different learning styles. So I remember one student, every time we have an exam, so what he does is he would flip through the pages, no? Test paper, siguro mga 1, 2, 3 pages yon. Hinahanap niya yung phrase na Almighty God always. Kasi that means yun yung end. So, bigla flip niya. Oh no, Almighty God always. Oh no, for paper. And then he would crumple it and then shove it into his mouth. Because the number of papers, the text on each page overwhelms kanya. Parang nag-sensory overload siya na a lot of text to process, a lot of information to process. Parang sunod-sunod, one after the other. So I told the teacher because it's been happening, no, every time we have an exam. So I told the teacher, you know what? Give him one question at a time. If 25 items, meron ka ring 25 strips of paper. So you type it on the paper and then cut per item and then saka mo ibibigay. And you know what? Walang outburst, no? Walang meltdown, walang crumpling of paper, natapos perfect ma ang bata. So you see, so we have to respect na yung diversity ng ating learners. It empowers students by offering choices in how they engage with content, how they demonstrate understanding and express their learning. So, pag ganito, autonomy increases. And if autonomy increases, it increases the motivation and allows learners to use their strength. So, easier said than done, it's true, but it doesn't have to be perfect, right? Hindi naman yan perfect 100% UDL, that everything is seamless, everything is smoothly run inside your classroom. No, that's not the reality. But it's worth the start. Kailan pa tayo magsisimula? The time is now to start. So UDL, it's one provision. Meron talaga siyang section sa law, yung RA 11650, that an inclusive classroom dapat ay should be universal design for learning. So, ang batas na mismo ang nagsabi. Now, there's another, I don't know if you heard about Carrie Wong, famous sa US, no? Every time na the start of the school year, lalong-lalo na yung mga new teachers, yung talagang merong training about the Harry Wong's approach. Sabi niya, kasi lagi, ang complaint ng teacher na number one problem sa classroom is the behavior. Pero 40 years of research, sabi ni Harry Wong, the number one problem in the classroom is not discipline. Ano yung number one problem sa classroom? It is the lack of procedures and routines. So, hindi niya yan sabi-sabi. He has data to back this up. So, the number one problem in the classroom is not discipline. It is the lack of procedures and routines. Would you agree? So, it's on us. It's not on the student. No, it's on us, teachers, what we do inside the classroom. Kasi sabi niya, when students know exactly what to do and how to do it, behavior problem decrease dramatically and learning time increases. Do you agree? That is really not on them but on us for failure to establish procedures and routines. So lahat, like arrival time. What is your arrival procedure? Saan dapat yung bata? Morning meeting, morning routine, circle time. What is your procedure for circle time? How do they sit? Sit on the floor, crisscross, applesauce, sit like an Indian. So, paulit-ulit yan, paulit-ulit siya na ginagawa hanggang sa matutunan ng bata, like, how to do things inside your classroom. If it's snack time, what is your snack procedure? Recess, what is your recess procedure? Bathroom, when the student needs to go to the bathroom, what is the procedure? Meron ka ng proseso, procedures in place for everything that's gonna happen inside the classroom. Predictability, dapat alam ng bata what to do inside the classroom. Remember, tayo, if we are in a new place, we don't know what to do, right? Hindi natin alam kung ano yung gagawin. We're lost. Oh God, where do I go? Where should I sit? Anong gagawin ko dito? I have this, we don't know what to do. It's the same thing with a student. When they're inside the classroom, they should know what to do. They should know that, oops, if it's not mine, it's not for the taking. Oops, this is not my stuff. I should not get it. So everything should be clear. That's what Harry Wong said. There has to be procedures and routines. Sabi, why it matters? Because if you have procedures and routines, it reduces anxiety and increases predictability. Meaning, the moment they enter, they know what to do. Oops, the schedule for the day is this one. So, re-reduce siya ng anxiety. Lalong-lalo na sa mga batang merong autism, kahit yung mga batang merong ADHD, they have very poor executive functioning, they have very poor organizational skills. So, kailangan nila ng help. So, if the moment they enter the classroom, they know where to put their backpack, they know where to sit, they know where their chair is, they know that it's morning meeting or circle time, they know where to position themselves. So, alam na nila, the procedure done over and over again becomes routine. And if routine is implemented from day one to the last day of the school year, it becomes as natural as breathing for them. So no one gets anxious na, oh, I'm lost in translation. I don't know what to do. Teacher, hindi ko alam. Because everything is in place. It creates a structured environment for inclusion. Everyone is on board. Remember kung nag-a-apply tayo ng work, merong onboarding, right? We know the rules, the expectations. It's the same thing inside our classroom. We should have an onboarding process. Remember, consistent routines help all learners know what to expect. So, sabihin niya, oh, I'm expected to sit down and listen to the teacher when the teacher is talking. I'm expected to write my name or to answer the question because it's a test, no? It's a quiz. So, clear dapat yung ano. Oh, walang lapis. Remember, why are you not writing? Magtataka ka, why are you not writing? Everyone is writing. Why are you not writing? Teacher, wala akong pencil. But if at the onset, during onboarding process, ay sinabi mo pag walang pencil, this is where you go, pencils are here. If the tip of your pencil, if the lead is broken, this is where you go to sharpen your pencil. So there is a process na dapat alam ng bata. When students can anticipate transitions and activities, they feel safer and more confident to engage in learning. Creates a structured environment for inclusion. Remember, inclusion for all types of learners, neurotypical and neurodivergent. Predictable classroom structures allow diverse learners to participate fully. So kaya nga, full participation. So we have to have that kind of predictable classroom structure para lahat can fully participate, not just your typical learners. Clear routines eliminates guesswork, and then enabling students with varying needs to focus on learning rather than navigating uncertainty. So teach the procedure explicitly. Okay, example. During literacy instruction, meron silang tinatawag na procedure na TCCA. Okay, T stands for trace, C stands for copy, another C stands for cover, and A, avert. So TCCA. So there is a writing paper. So student is learning the phonics rule number 1. Let's say, for example, A says A. That's rule number 1. A says A. But using multisensory approach, the instruction is trace. So the first part, the upper part of the paper, it says trace. So you trace the letter A. And by doing that, when tracing, you say the rule, A says A, A says A, A says A. After tracing, then you go to the next step, which is copy. So the same thing, when you copy, you say the rule. A says A says A says A says A. Now you're done tracing, you're done copying. Now you have to cover. So you're going to write A by memory. Okay? But when you write from memory, no, you still say the rules. A says A says A says A says A. Now you're done tracing, you're done copying, you're done covering and writing from memory. Now it's time for you to avert. Avert means you need to avert your um like lilingon ka. So you avert your face from the paper and then you still say the rule A says A says A says and then write it on the paper. So that's procedure. And then lahat na. Um, B says B, B says B. So it's the same thing, TCCA procedure, and it becomes routine. You rehearse it until it becomes a routine and should be reinforced consistently. Hindi lang yung um the next day wala na, the next week wala na. It has to be reinforced consistently. So teach procedure explicitly, break down each procedure into clear sequential steps. Model the expected behavior, explain the rationale behind it, and demonstrate exactly what success looks like. You can use visual aids, you can use verbal instructions all together. So, I remember no during circle time, maybe after this presentation, I can show you the video. Um, During morning meeting, yung rules inside the classroom verbalized by the student over and over again, and there's picture, and then the teacher is asking the student to verbalize each rule. Rehearse it until it becomes routine. Practice the procedure multiple times with the students. Provide guided practice first, then independent practice. Continue rehearsing until student can perform the procedure like automatically. Fluent na sila. So it's just like it's natural as breathing, even without prompting. So, example, you have a morning routine, you have a transition routine, recess routine, snack break routine, lunch break routine, literacy instruction, what's the routine? Numeracy instruction, what's the routine? So, everything should have procedures and routines. Everything that you do inside your classroom, even putting the backpack, getting the backpack, arrival procedure, meron yan, standard procedure. Yan yung sinasabi na SOP, Standards Operating Procedure. There has to be standard operating procedures for everything that's happening inside your classroom. Attention signals, behavioral expectations, attention signals, very common. If noisy na yung class and everybody seem to be not listening to the teacher and they're talking to each other. So the teacher to get the attention, say class, class, and the students know that the teacher is getting their attention. You'd say yes, yes. So there are other ways to get the attention. No, meron naman yung hand signals like for means something. For means like uh, silent, be quiet, or two means sit down, one means get your. So hand signals, think of signals that you can use, practical signals that you can use in the classroom. Okay, the key concept is the number one problem in the classroom is not discipline. It is the lack of procedures and routines. So I hope you again, I agree with this 100%. It's really on us teachers. We are the one actually setting the tone inside the classroom, setting the culture inside the classroom. This is powerful insight from Harry Wong reminds us that proactive classroom management through clear expectations prevents most behavioral challenges before they can even begin. So, see, you can implement universal design for learning. You can implement procedures and routines in your classroom. I don't know if you heard about co-teaching strategies. Hmm. Co-teaching strategies. This is designed by an American educator, Marilyn Friend. So she's a special needs education teacher actually. So siguro she underwent challenges, difficulties, na nahihirapan siya na siya lang mag-isa sa classroom. She came up with co-teaching strategies. So, this is a very powerful collaborative approach. In our school, hindi lang isang teacher sa loob ng classroom. Apart from having an aide, meron din kaming merong lead teacher at saka meron yung assisting teacher. Dalawa talaga yung teachers per class. So, this approach ay merong two educator. One, the Gen Ed teacher. The second is the SNED teacher. They share responsibility for planning, delivering, and assessing instruction for a diverse group of students. So you see, it's really hard. I know it's hard kung mag-isa ka lang and you don't get support from the admin. So, teaching strategy is a good strategy to use inside your classroom. This is a partnership between a Gen Ed teacher and a SNED teacher, and it creates a supportive environment where all learners can thrive. Imagine two teachers attending to the students. So let's see if you have 25 students, 5 of that have disability. So, maging madali na lang kasi meron kang katuwang, meron kang partner. Now, research shows that effective co-teaching strategies increases student engagement, provides more individualized attention, and improves academic outcomes for students with and without disabilities. Benefits. Ano naman mga benepisyo makukuha natin dito sa co-teaching strategies? Is it worth doing, worth taking? Okay. So, ang dami ng research. So, this is evidence-based. Co-teaching partnerships create powerful learning environment that benefit all students, including those with diverse learning needs. And it reduced student-teacher ratio. Of course, kung 25, tapos dalawa kayo, ang ratio niyan ay 1 teacher to 12 student, yung isa naman ay 13. So you see that there's a shared responsibility. Shared responsibility, dalawang teachers sa isang classroom attending to a class of 25. With two educators in the classroom, students receive more individualized attention and support. Would you agree? Tama naman, di ba? This allows for quicker identification of struggling learners and immediate intervention. So, meron naman diverse expertise and perspective. Okay, iba ang perspective ng Gen Ed teacher. Iba naman ang perspective ng SNED teacher. The Gen Ed teacher would tell the SNED teacher, this is the grade level expectations. So, where is the student at when it comes to grade level expectations? So, this is the curriculum. This is the curriculum content. And then the SNED teacher would say, oh, the student is not there yet. We need to modify the curriculum content. So and then this is what we can do. How can we accommodate yung need ng bata? So, merong pagpaplano, no? Merong merging of ideas. General and special education teachers bring complementary skills. One may excel in content knowledge while the other specializes in differentiation, strategies, and accommodations. Enhanced differentiated instruction. Two teachers can effectively implement tiered activities. So yung level of difficulty, flexible grouping, and varied instructional approaches to meet individual student needs. It improves outcomes for all learners. How research shows co-taught classrooms benefit not only students with disabilities, but all learners, including the neurotypical learners, through increased engagement, varied teaching styles, and more responsive instruction. So how do you do the co-teaching strategies? So according to Marilyn Friend, there are 6 models of co-teaching. One is one teach, one observe, literal. One teacher leads the instruction while the other systematically observes, collects data, go observe siya, go observes student engagement, behavior, and academic performance. This happens like during assessment period, when you're gathering, you're getting to know the learners. So while the lead teacher is doing the instruction, the other teacher is observing and gathering intel, gathering data, no, from the classroom. This model provides valuable insights for differentiation and intervention planning. The next model is the one teach, one assist. So one teacher delivers the lesson while the other circulates throughout the classroom. So umiikot sa loob ng classroom providing individual support. So umiikot siya, pinupuntahan niya kung sino yung nangangailangan ng support at bibigyan niya ng suporta. For example, if the student is not writing, poor organizational skills, hindi dumating sa isip niya na, oh, I need I need crayons, I need pens, I need pencil. So the teacher, yung doing the instruction will not stop the instruction. The assisting teacher will do the work, will go to that student needing the help. Okay, you need to go get the crayon, you need to go get the pencil. What do you need? Do you need help with this? So someone is already assisting. And redirecting the behavior. Kailangan, halimbawa, yung bata ay doing something else, not engaged with the lesson. The teacher doing the instruction doesn't need to stop the instruction. The assisting teacher will go to that student and help him redirect back to focus and offering clarification to students who need additional assistance. O di ba, napakaganda. The next one is my favorite, station teaching. So how do you do this? So oftentimes you hear, oh, how many learning centers? Are you doing learning centers in your classroom or learning stations? You see it on social media, no? Ang daming gumagawa. Here's what I do in my literacy center, in my numeracy centers. So it's actually creating learning stations, or learning centers. Students rotate through different learning stations and each led by a teacher or designed for independent work. So let's say in my class of 25, how many learning stations do I have in my classroom? Let's say I have numeracy instruction, I have numeracy center, literacy center, arts and craft, discovery center, mess area, individual workstation. So, ang dami mo, ano. And you divide the group into smaller groups. So you can do small group instructions and you can do individual work. Lalo na yung mga advanced or yung someone who cannot work with the group, no? So meron kang individual workstation. This allows small group instruction, differentiated content, and hands-on activities tailored to diverse learning needs. So this actually is my favorite. But you know what? It doesn't mean that all throughout, you can only choose one. Like in the entire day, baka naman workable lahat ito. Depende sa mga estudyante mo. Depende rin sa need ng activity, sa need ng lesson. So it really does not follow na, from morning, ito lang talaga ang gagamitin ko. Next is parallel teaching. So just like parallel line, di ba? Dalawang ganito. Parallel teaching ay both teachers deliver the same content simultaneously to two smaller groups. So let's say, example, yung group, a class of 25. So what the teachers do, they divide 25 into two smaller groups. One is 12, the other is 13. So one teacher is handling the first group, the other teacher is handling the second group, and they're doing they're delivering the same content, no? The same instruction, simultaneous, magkasabay sila. Now, this reduces student to teacher ratio and increases participation opportunities and allows for more individualized attention and immediate feedback. Kasi nga, smaller group na siya, mas dali mong makita na yung bata. And they have more opportunities to participate, right? Kasi konti na lang sila. So, hinati sa dalawa. Parallel teaching. Now, next is alternative teaching. Alternative teaching. So, know the difference. One teacher works with a small group for targeted intervention, remediation, or enrichment, while the other instruct the larger groups. So, earlier, meron akong nasabi yung one teach, one assist. Yun ay habang nag-i-instruct while the lead teacher is doing the instruction, one teacher is going around looking for a student needing help para ma-assist niya. But the alternative teaching, meron ka ng targeted group. So automatic na sa'yo, okay, kuhanin mo na yung 5 needing the intervention, the remediation or enrichment, uupuan mo na sila while the rest of the group are advancing, no, in their lessons. The alternate teacher will sit down with the 5 and do remediations. This is ideal for pre-teaching, reteaching, or addressing specific skill gaps without pulling students from the classroom. So you know the difference na from the one teach, one assist sa alternative teaching. Magkaiba. Team teaching is another model. Both teachers share instruction simultaneously. So teacher 1, teacher 2, building on each other's expertise in real time. So like kung nagtuturo sila ng energy, lesson on energy or lesson on matter, silang dalawa. So nagsasagutan, no? They teach alternately. So simultaneous na nandoon sila sa harap doing instruction to the entire class. This represents true collaboration where teachers co-plan, co-instruct, co-assess together, modeling professional dialogue and diverse perspective for students. Napakaganda. You think this is feasible and possible in your schools, that you can implement co-teaching strategies? It's really worth the try, I tell you. Now, knowing is something, but making it work, doing is one thing, making it work is another thing. How can you make co-teaching strategy work? Oftentimes, okay, magiging issue nito, magrereklamo yung very active teacher kapag ang isa ay very complacent, no? I'm just relying on the other teacher. To make it work, kailangan, you need to establish clear roles and responsibilities. Define who leads the instruction, who supports, and how duties shift between models. So, kailangan clear na, sino ang lead teacher, sino ang assisting teacher, sino ang teacher observer, sino ang alternate teacher. How do we do? What do we do? This is what we need when we do parallel teaching. Kailangan, you have that and I have this. So, there's planning. Both teachers should understand their contribution to avoid confusion and ensure seamless collaboration. So, hindi pwede ang complacent at saka yung isa na relying so much na lang on the other teacher. Plan collaboratively. So, collaboration, I always remember my late mother-in-law. Collaboration is more than just cooperation. Cooperate, like you just operate, no? But when you collaborate, there is so much value in it. Kasi nga, di ba, when a woman gives birth, we call it labor. Nagli-labor, is about to give birth, the woman is into labor na. Labor. There's so much love, there's so much perseverance, there's passion in it, there's so much effort. You're so invested in it, no? Schedule regular co-planning time to design lessons together. So, hindi lang isang teacher ang nagpaplano ng lesson. Designing the lesson, dapat dalawa. Discuss learning objectives, student needs, accommodations, and which co-teaching model best fits, no? Each lesson. And there's a shared planning. Shared planning builds ownership and effectiveness. So, hindi pwedeng to each his own. Remember, this is a partnership. Co-teaching is a collaborative partnership. And you should be able to communicate consistently, maintain open dialogue about student progress, classroom challenges, and instructional adjustments that you need to do inside the classroom. Regular check-ins, honest feedback, strengthen the partnership, and improve outcomes for all learners. Do you agree? This is really worth the try, itong co-teaching strategy. Napakaganda nito. So, we talk about universal design for learning, procedures and routines, co-teaching strategies that you can use inside the classroom. Now, how about behavior strategies, practical behavior modification strategies? Now, we're not yung behavior analyst. We are not occupational therapists, but we can benefit from getting their input from the information that they can give us. Effective behavior strategies focus on proactive approaches rather than reactive responses. So, kaya nga, we really have to know, like, observe natin yung bata, kilalanin natin. We should be able to have yung mga sensory profile ng bata, learners profile, no? Lahat, ano yung kanilang mga preferences, so their interest, how they learn best, the concept, kilalanin natin yung bata should be able to come up with a good planning, a good plan. Positive reinforcement encourages desired behaviors. So, example, what positive reinforcement is not. So, take this situation, no? Lagi natin itong nakikita sa loob ng toy store. And then parents, husband and wife, together with their child. So yung bata merong gusto na toy. So, "Mommy, I want this." Mommy says, "We have no money to buy that. That's very expensive." And then mag-start escalate a little bit ng bata. "Mommy, sige na." So, with the whining and everything, stamping of foot, no? And still mommy says no. And then i-escalate ng bata by crying, "Mommy, gusto ko talaga ng toy." Hindi pa rin. Mommy says, "No, we have no money. It's very expensive. It's the same thing." And i-escalate talaga ng bata. Todo bigay na nag-tantrum sa loob ng toys. Tapos talagang lying on the floor, behavior outburst. And then nag-give in. Kasi nahiya na si mommy. And what's the learning? So that is negative reinforcement. You are encouraging that negative behavior, no? Encouraging that negative behavior. You are already sized up by the student. Measured ka na ng bata na, oops, if I escalate it up to this point, mom and dad will give in kasi mahihiya sila. Positive reinforcement, on the other hand, is you are encouraging that positive behavior, no? So you're encouraging it to happen over and over again. Let's say, kung dun sana sa una pa lang at the onset, "Mommy, oh, you know what? Thank you so much for," so praise mo na, and then meron kang yung preferred, something that is preferred ng bata. It's not a reward, but actually reinforcer na binigay for not actually escalating. So that is positive reinforcement. Understanding behavior as communication. So you know the function of the behavior. SEAT, seat. Anong ibig sabihin ng seat? S is sensory, E is escape, A attention seeking, and T tangible. Sensory, it's something that's happening in their body. Let's say, okay, I have an example for that. Every 10 o'clock, every day, yung isa naming estudyante, binubuhos niya yung water niya sa katawan niya. That's the behavior, ha? The behavior is an action, is a verb. Frequency can be measured, duration can be measured. It's not the subjective opinion that we give to the student. It's actually the action. So verb, pag adjective, that is not the behavior. That is the label you give to the student. That is your opinion, subjective opinion. So when we talk about behavior, it's action, it's a verb. Observable. So yung pagbuhos ng tubig, that is the behavior. And then he would stand up, go to the bathroom, open the faucet, babasain niya yung every 10 o'clock. And then, laging nangyayari yun. So, what is that telling us? So, nabanggit namin ito sa occupational therapy friend namin, na therapist friend namin. Kasi nga walang slot yung bata. Sabi niya, baka nainitan siya. Sensory. So, true enough, so what we did was, teach, let's be proactive. Bago pa lang mag 10 o'clock, turuan natin yung bata magbasa ng bimpo. So, meron kaming cold water na magbabasa ng bimpo, iro-roll namin yung bimpo. So, squeeze niya yun, tapos ilalagay niya sa neck niya, sa arms niya, sa to prevent yung pagbuhos ng bata, no, ng tubig sa katawan niya. And true enough, it worked. So, the child is telling us na mainit yung katawan niya every 10 o'clock. So, it's sensory. So, it's the same child actually na nagka-crumple ng paper. Bakit niya kina-crumple yung paper during test? He's escaping, double whammy nga eh. He's escaping from not doing kasi na sensory overload na siya doon sa text-heavy na test. So he's escaping from it. And then attention seeking, that's his way of getting the attention eh. He's not being attended to, na he has his need na, uy, mainit ang katawan ko. I need this in my body. And example na ang function ay tangible. Yung bata na nasa mall, because he needs that toy so badly, nagwala siya. So, know the function, SEAT, seat, sensory, escape, and attention seeking, and tangible. Practical behavior strategies. Kailangan meron tayong clear expectations and then with visual supports. Kasi bakit kailangan ng visual support? Sometimes the verbal and auditory information are not enough for the student to process the information. We have to provide more sensory input, the visual input, no? Na ma-process niya, maintindihan niya. And then bago kayo pumunta sa mall, let's say bago pumunta sa mall or bago pa mag-start ng lesson, you have to be clear sa rules and policies, no? Post classroom rules using visual icons and pictures alongside text. Create visual schedules, behavior charts, step-by-step task cards that all students can reference to when confused and lost in translation. So in our classroom, we have a transition board. Ang transition board, that is the place to go to pag gustong malaman ng bata kung ano yung activities for today. Nandoon yung mga individual schedules. Or you can have a general schedule posted, diba, dyan sa harap. And then, dapat meron ka, alam na rin yung bata kung paano mag-transition, that it's time to transition. Especially, they have a hard time kung from highly preferred activity to least preferred activity. Mahihirapan. Like, a parent was asking us, teacher, every time talaga nagpapasok na sa school, umiiyak talaga, naglulupasay, no, no school, no school. And then I asked, so what is your child doing sa bahay bago kayo papasok? Sabi niya, nag-iPad. So, you see, that's it. Kaya ayaw niyang pumasok kasi his child is having a hard time transitioning from the highly preferred iPad use to going to school. So you have to remove that iPad. Use consistent visual cues like color coding or transitions and hand signals for attention. And then you have to have consistent consequences. Flexibility. Establish predictable responses to behaviors while allowing individualized accommodations. Use positive reinforcement systems that can be adapted for different learners, like token economy chart, a citizenship chart. Implement tiered intervention, meaning levels of support, no? Approaches that maintain fairness while meeting diverse student needs. I know, easier said than done, but it's worth the start. Once you get the hang of it, yun na nga, procedures, if done over and over again, it's practice over and over again, it becomes a routine, and it is a routine, it becomes as natural as breathing. Hindi na mahirap. In conclusion, so practical strategies that you can use inside your classroom, we talk about how many? Universal design for learning. It provides a foundational framework for inclusive education. Yan talagang sinabi ng law. Ensuring multiple means of engagement, representation, and action and expression to reach every learner in your classroom. When UDL combines with consistent procedures and routines, strategic co-teaching partnerships, and of course, nandoon na yung mga practical behavior management strategies, you as a teacher create a powerful system where student thrives and succeeds, where structure meets flexibility, maximizing support and success for all learners. So the key concept is inclusion is not a strategy to help people fit into the system. You're not expecting a student or a learner to fit into your classroom, no? To your existing classroom. It is about transforming your classroom and making the systems in your classroom meet the needs of everyone. So this principle reminds us that true inclusion requires systemic change. And it starts from us, teacher, because we are the ones setting the tone inside the classroom, not just accommodations. So remember, um, napakalaki ng ating duties and responsibilities. We really have to step up, really have to step up for the learners. We really have to advocate for our learners. Remember prudent advocacy. We need to align everything to the law. We need to ensure, like talagang nangunguna, no? Yung constitutional rights ng mga bata to basic education, the welfare of the child, the welfare and the right of the child to inclusion. Thank you so much for listening. Again, this is Teacher Kim, and I think we're now open for question.